Hello and welcome to another episode of Attacking Third, a CBS Sports soccer podcast. I'm Sandra, Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports, joined today, as always, by my colleague and co-host, Lisa Roman, NWSL analyst and broadcaster. On today's episode, we've got an NWSL 2022 Expansion Draft live recap for everybody. But first, thanks for joining us. Here's a quick plug. MasterCard is a proud official partner of the National Women's Soccer League. The company is deeply committed to women's sports and promoting diversity on and off the field. Go to priceless.com to learn more about how MasterCard is supporting gender equity and limitless possibilities for all. Everyone, thanks for being here today. A quick reminder to follow us on Twitter at Attacking Third for breaking news. We're also on YouTube. If you're watching this live, please subscribe and like this video. You can find us on youtube.com/Attacking Third. Lisa, how you doing? We did it. We made it. Here we are. Expansion draft over, done and dusted.
I mean, you would think that as soon as the picks were all done and said. I know a lot of people turned off their stream. They walked away. I even got up. I went into my kitchen and I was just thinking about all the trades. And all of a sudden I hear from the broadcast, more news is happening and breaking in the league. I'm like running back into my little studio here in my apartment. Sandra, nuts. There is so much that we need to dive into here, and I'm so excited to talk to you about it. And you're a little superstar on CBS Sports, giving your analysis there, but we know where your heart truly lies, with Attacking Third and with me right here.
That's true. I love to be amongst the people, and this is where it's at. I love it. I put it out there on Twitter. I said, "Yo, come join the after party. This is where it's at. We're gonna have a good time here." I guess maybe we have the later gig, right? But maybe we have the more fun of the gigs because we're a little bit more loose. We have all the information, right? We react to that a little bit. Let's get into it. If you're joining us, spoiler alert, we're gonna talk about everything. So if you're joining us because you missed what was happening during the expansion draft, we're gonna walk you through it. Okay. So for people who are just getting the first of everything, heading into this expansion draft, you had San Diego Way Football Club, Angel City FC, heading into expansion draft to sort of build out their rosters. A ton of trades taking place right ahead of this event, which led to the following roster protections ahead of this event. San Diego with full roster protection for Chicago Red Stars, Kansas City, Gotham FC, and North Carolina Courage. Angel City making a number of moves for full roster protection and partial roster protections for some teams. Full roster protection for similar teams: the Chicago Red Stars, Kansas City Current, Gotham FC, North Carolina Courage, and Racing Louisville and Portland Thorns. But partial protection for OL Reign. No forwards could be selected, and then Washington Spirit, none of their allocated players could be protected. So it's sort of set the table ahead of time, Lisa, for this event where there were some question marks, and we were like, wait a second now, because we go here to CBS, and we're like, hold on a second. What's this event gonna look like? We brought Marissa Pilla on for a preview of this expansion draft event. She talked to us a little bit about prepping for this. We knew it was gonna look and feel a little bit different, knowing that there were only going to be a handful or so of selecting eligible type of teams participating in this draft. So I guess initially, what were some of your perspectives going into this night of what we were gonna anticipate?
I think that's the first thing we do have to touch on, because we knew so many teams were protected from both Angel City and San Diego, Chicago, Kansas City, Gotham, North Carolina. And because of that, there would be less picks overall. I mean, that's just common knowledge and math right there for you. And then a lot of teams that were being protected by these squads, where were those draft picks going to go? And that's why when we saw San Diego pass on 2 of their picks, I really wasn't surprised. Maybe just surprised that they wouldn't pick earlier and then pass on the last 2, just to put their final pick a little bit higher in the overall picks. But no, I wasn't too surprised with how everything kind of unfolded here. We also had the protected and unprotected players list from each of the 9 teams in the NWSL that did come out ahead of this expansion draft. So we knew the players that were unprotected and the most valuable for their current clubs, were most likely going to go at the top of this board. And that's something that I don't think we saw. And even when you watch the CBS Sports live draft coverage of this, the number 3rd pick in Claire Emsley was a little bit surprising for everyone. And I know we're going to run through all of these draft picks, but seeing a player like Kaylee Rio not go higher in this draft was something that surprised me. But also, you have to remember that Angel City couldn't draft from Racing Louisville. So for San Diego, they could choose to pick from Racing Louisville whenever they wanted because they were the only team picking from them. So there was so many moving parts when I was watching this draft happen that I was like, why are you not picking X player? And then I would be like, well, you can't, or it doesn't matter because there were certain restrictions like OL Reign's forwards and Washington Spirit's allocated players. I was constantly like double checking my notes, like, right, this is what they can do. But I have to say the live looks at Angel City and San Diego in their rooms doing the picks, pretty hilarious, pretty cool to see. Angel City playing cards at the start of this. We have to ask Freya Kum about that. Hey, why not? If you're that confident going into an expansion draft, I love to see that.
Listen, I love all the little quirks that happen like in between a draft. Another bit of information for folks who didn't know that this draft and the upcoming NWSL 2022 draft on Saturday were both moved to virtual events. They initially were announced that they were going to be 2 back-to-back events, right? Live in-person events out in Cali and Los Angeles. Setting was in place and everything, but obviously due to the complications with the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, things were moved virtually. So this was a virtual production of this event, as will be on Saturday, and that is something that we need to bring up a little bit as well, because you don't see that. Like you're missing those type of draft day like quirks or bits of culture so like that's coming into play. You don't see the 50 little million conversations that are happening side to side, table to table. That wasn't something that kind of came into play.
Even the side looks that you get when the camera flashes to a table and it's like, what? That was the pick? So we did miss that.
I love that Angel City still brought a deck of cards because that's part of it. I mean, like we might see a little bit of this right on Saturday when the regular NWSL draft comes into play, because that tends to be a little bit of a longer event, and it's from that event where something like, yo, bring a deck of cards in because it's going to be a long night kind of vibe. So I love that things got kicked off with that. You appreciate the little things like that, and I appreciated seeing that out of Angel City. But we've sort of done that. We've set the table a little bit, right? We talked about the teams that went in there with full protection, some of the teams that went in with partial protection. The fact that this got moved from an live and in-person event to a virtual event kind of shakes things up and puts shift things around differently. And obviously all the trades, right, that took place ahead of time maybe shifted some things a little bit. Whereas maybe if all of those moves aren't made, this is a little bit of a different night. Maybe there's 2 rounds, right, instead of just the 1 round with X amount of picks, because the rules were different heading into this event as well, where it's like a team can only make certain selections from certain teams. Teams can only protect 9 players versus 11 in the past, right? All these different adjustments and alterations were made to the rules ahead of it. But let's just go through these picks and sort of see how they ended up rounding out, because it was once they got to the picks, Lisa, it kind of went rather quickly. And Angel City was first on the clock in this one. Were you excited when it was finally like, here we are, we're getting to the picks?
I mean, I loved all the banter beforehand and kind of the background of where these 2 clubs have come from. But we have our attacking third social media manager and a coordinator in this stream with us right now, Sydney, and we were going back and forth before this happened, and all of a sudden these picks came and they were very fast. I was trying to take down notes and stay on top of it. Those 2.5 minutes, Sandra, they go very, very quick, but we knew Angel City was up first, and they took it away right from the start.
I love this pick. We're just gonna get down to the nitty gritty. Angel City comes in with the first pick in the expansion draft, right? And they go with a midfielder in Danny Weatherholt from OL Reign. She's plays in the 6, a defensive midfielder. She's a league veteran, right? Multiple years in the league, got 6 seasons under her belt here, and a California native. I thought it was a great pick out the gate for Angel City. And when they made it, I was like, oh, they're still coming to play even after all of these moves, right? That they made ahead of the expansion draft. I was like, this is just bulking up their middle third there. And I really like that they made this pick to start things off.
That's the point, Sandra. You could have seen either of these teams, San Diego or Angel City, really go for players that haven't seen a lot of time on the field, that could be those players off the bench coming in, not getting those starting spots, just to create depth at positions. And with this first pick in Danny Weatherall from OL Reign, this was not a depth pick for Angel City. Yes, she plays that defensive midfield position, that 6 holding midfield. And Angel City already has Julie Ertz in that position, but Julie Ertz is still injured and she's still recovering from that. So this is a player in Weatherholt that could come into Angel City and really set the tone. As you mentioned, she is a veteran and now returning home to Southern California with Angel City. This is a huge move. And that's something that we talked about in our preview, that we thought that these expansion clubs were going to try to get players that were from California, that wanted to return home to California. That's been such a big theme throughout this league, is that players want to play in front of their home crowds in hometowns. And now that there are 2 teams in California, San Diego and Los Angeles, we were going to see players that were from Southern California being moved back into these teams. And I'm no surprise that Danny Weatherholt went first, honestly, because she is such a tremendous defensive midfielder. She can get stuck in on tackles and plays, but as soon as she wins the ball, she can also be that pivot player, switching the ball from one side to the other. So big pickup for Angel City to start. San Diego, though, they were moving right along. Second pick in this NWSL expansion draft, Sandra. Who else did it go to than Houston Dash's own Christy Mewis, midfielder? She was unprotected. One of the players that I think a lot of people starred and circled when they read the Houston Dash unprotected, protected player list, because Christy Mewis is a U.S. women's national team veteran. She was at the Olympics this summer, attacking midfielder player, such a playmaker on the ball. She can dribble with so much speed at defenders, have that creative mindset to play those little slip balls through to her forward. She can even rotate through into that front line as well. Such a versatile player. And she gets picked up by San Diego.
You know what? They made this pick, right? And I was like, oh, we got a heavyweight match going on right here. You had Angel City with the Weatherholt pick, and then you had San Diego taking a midfield of their own, but it was Christy Mewis, right? So choosing a U.S. allocated player from Houston Dash, right? We just sort of knew that with the rules in place ahead of this, that Houston was probably gonna maybe make a move, and leaving this player off kind of raised some eyebrows a little bit for Houston. But San Diego also selecting this player, we knew, and then we're going to talk about this more towards the bottom of this episode. But a lot of us sort of knew that there were some unannounced trades, right, coming into play. We knew in the back of our minds that there was going to be another trade window that would open back up ahead of the regular NWSL draft taking place on Saturday. So what is this? Was this going to be a solidified pick? Was Christy Mewis going to be part of the San Diego Wave Football Club family? And turns out that wasn't the case, but we're going to get to that later. So at the time, you're thinking, okay, 2 picks back to back. You're talking about 2 experienced midfielders, right?
Mm-hmm.
2 Cali sides coming into play. But then you've got number 3, right? You've got Angel City back on the clock, and they end up going with a forward, right? So they choose a midfielder first, and they end up going with a forward. They choose from Orlando Pride. They go with Claire Emsel. Excuse me, am I saying that correctly? NWSL analyst and broadcaster Lisa Rowland.
Yes, Claire Emsley.
You always want to double check and not disrespect any player.
Of course. I'm not sure. She's an international player too. So to have her back in the NWSL is huge. Scottish international there. She has played in the league before, but she's coming back. Her rights were owned by Orlando Pride. So that was the pickup from Orlando Pride that we saw from Angel City, because Orlando Pride, a team that really wasn't protected throughout this draft. So it's no surprise that we saw 1 or 2 of their players get snatched up early.
It's again, this was another one where we're just kind of like, okay, there were 2 teams that we knew for sure coming in here that didn't have roster protection, right? We knew it was Houston, we knew it was Orlando. So I was a little bit curious as the players that were going to be selected out of these two clubs. And then I think this was another one. This was another pick right after Kristen Mewis that people maybe had their eyes on a little bit. Still, even now, sort of post expansion draft here, where they're kind of wondering where this particular player is going to fit in for Angel City. Someone who has been playing overseas in England for a little while, ties to Everton. Is Angel City committing to a player that they've maybe had some conversations with already, that is going to commit to them and come on over and play for Angel City? I'm sure we'll find out. Yes, a Scottish international, very, very crafty player. You could maybe utilize her along that entire front line, right? We'll see.
Yeah.
And who knows if she's going to end up utilizing one of these international picks, right? That Angel City has gotten. I believe they got one from Chicago during this trade window. We'll find out whether or not that's going to be utilized for that player.
I think we will see that. And one of the cool things about the CBS draft coverage is that Marissa Pilla was chatting and she got the opportunity to talk with Casey Stoney and Freya Coombe. And Marissa asked head coach of Angel City, Freya Coombe, about this pick. And Freya opened up and said that, yeah, she's a left-footed player and we need those. And we need a player that can play on the wing and send crosses in and keep the ball and score goals that they need to. And having that international level of play coming into this Angel City team is huge for this squad. And Freya Coombe actually also said that she can drop her back into the midfield, playing more of a wing back position. Of course, these new teams, we don't really know what kind of formation Angel City and San Diego are going to roll out. And now as these rosters are shaping out, you can see that the possibilities are really endless, especially getting a player like this as the third pick. San Diego then for the fourth pick, their second pick in this draft, back on the clock, Kristen McNabb, the defender and midfielder from OL Reign. So that was OL Reign's second player to lose in just the top 4 picks of this draft. And if that tells you anything, is that OL Reign's roster is incredibly deep and incredibly talented, because Kristen McNabb going to San Diego, she's been in the league for a number of years, and she plays a defender. So she can either drop into that center back position and be a communicator and an organizer in the back line. San Diego also, we know that they have Abby Dahlkamfer in that center back position as well. But Kristen McNabb is a player that can also play on the width. She's more comfortable playing in that center back position, but out in an outside back position or even a defensive midfielder 6 role, Kristen McNabb can shine and she can be that connector player for San Diego. So she was San Diego's pick for 4 and the second player to go from OL Reign, the first being Danny Weatherall and the first overall pick for Angel City.
Listen, when Kristen McNabb went, I said, that's rough. I said, that's rough for OL Reign. OLR, ours for rough, because it was, it's going to, listen, the trade window was tough for a lot of teams. You saw a lot of the hardcore fan base sort of reacting to some of the trades that were taking place during that trade window, right? And then you had that other part of it, right, where it's expansion draft, and you're going to have maybe hardcore fan bases of those teams also react to a night like this. And we saw that happening for OL Reign with these two kind of players going, not back to back per se, but pretty early in the selection process of this expansion draft. Angel City was back on the clock with pick number 5. They went with another forward, and I was a big fan of this pick as well, and Jasmine Spencer from the Houston Dash. You're talking about a 9-year veteran of this league, one of the forwards that I really enjoy watching play in NWSL, and she is someone that I think adds additional depth for that forward core that it looks like they're starting to build in Angel City. And they got that first piece in somebody like Kristen Press, who I think if you make that big leap for that type of player, that is a player who is going to be starting on your front line. But who are you going to be utilizing around a player like that, right?
That's exactly what you have to look at, knowing that Kristen Press is already going to be in that starting lineup, that playing that number 9, that striker for Angel City. It's how can you complement Kristen Press, because Kristen Press is going to do what Kristen Press does, and that's get the ball, dribble at defenders, get in behind, look for the long balls over top, look to go 1v1 with the last defender and then even the goalkeeper against opponents. So playing or drafting a player like Jasmine Spencer in this expansion draft from Houston is huge. I think this is a great pickup. Jasmine Spencer is so quick on the ball. And if you throw her up top alongside a player like Kristen Press, I think that relationship can really grow and develop to be teammates that can give and go around defenders, can slot in behind back lines. And who knows, maybe we'll see Jasmine Spencer get the start. She may come off the bench for Angel City. I think that's something that still needs to be developed a little bit more over the next few weeks. But this was a huge grab for Angel City. Another player, honestly, when I looked at the unprotected player list, especially for Houston, Christy Neos was the first one. And then Jasmine Spencer, another player that was left unprotected, frankly, and a player that can create such a spark. And also her mindset, her mentality, a veteran in the league, 9 years in the NWSL. So she understands what she's doing, and she can join a team and really fit right in with her personality. She's upbeat. She's just a joy to chat to and to play with. I've heard from players. So this was a huge, huge grab for Angel City.
Absolutely. Shout out to Aaron Sullivan talking about Charlie Press, right? And possibly Spencer in that front line. I'm in complete agreement with you, Aaron. That's if you're the opposition looking at that, you're saying, oh boy, and like bracing yourself, right? As the defensive back line having to go up against a potential front three like that. But yeah, loved this pick from Angel City. Absolutely. I'm in agreement with you. Could either be a starter, could either be somebody who comes off of the bench. And I don't think people should discredit or look past NWSL ready type of forwards. You're talking about a player that's been in this league for as long as it has existed, right? And that is so important, I think, when you are an expansion club and you're trying to flesh out and build out your rosters, because this is a player that went to Houston kind of mid-season and didn't need a lot of time to make an impact with that club. And if you're Angel City, you're looking at somebody like like Jasmine Spencer and saying, we want that type of player to come here to Angel City and not need a ton of time to get adjusted to this type of tempo or the type of play that we're going to try to be developing with our new head coach. So I think this was a solid pickup for them all around. And I think we're talking about this a little bit more than maybe some other players, because as we started getting towards the latter end of this expansion draft, we started to see less picks. Lisa, you had San Diego Wave FC with the number 6 pick, and here comes President Jill Ellis and says, pass. We're good. And we're like, okay.
Sandra, she even prefaced it. The camera and the mic cut to her maybe before she was ready for it. And she goes, well, this is going to be anticlimactic. We pass. Which honestly, like looking at what kind of happened, I wasn't too surprised at this. I knew there was going to be a pass or two in this draft just based on which teams could draft from which other teams. And it was pretty hard hitting up front in this draft. I'd say the first handful of picks, even up until the 5th, Jasmine Spencer, huge picks and heavy hitters for both of these sides. And then for Jill Ellis to just give us a solid pass and move right along to Angel City for the number 7th pick.
And we knew we were going to have to keep our eye on that. We're like, okay, this is clearly because of some things that are probably going to come down the line, but they kept it moving. So we got to keep it moving. Angel City coming through at number 7 with another selection from Washington Spirit. They went ahead and they chose a defender after going midfielder, then forward, going the defensive end and choosing, again, another veteran, 4 years in the league, Paige Nielsen out of Washington Spirit. What is your take on this pick, Lisa? I know we talk about it all the time. If people are just joining us for the first time, Lisa and I are big fans of defense here on Attacking Third. We love it. We love to talk about it. Lisa, a former defender out of Marquette University. Why was this a good pickup in your opinion, or not, for Angel City to get somebody like a Paige Nielsen? From the Spirit?
Personally, I think this was a great pick. Paige Nielsen with Washington Spirit. She had a good season this year. She struggled with some injuries, so she was in and out of the lineup and even in 18 for games. But she's a player that can come in and really play that center back position and organize well and do that, but also be an outside back and use her speed and her athleticism to get up the flanks and send crosses in. We saw that a lot with Washington Spirit. They use their outside backs to really join into the attack, which I imagine we'll see from Angel City and Freya Kuhn, because that's exactly how Gotham played when Freya Kuhn was there, with Caprice Didasco out on the flank, constantly sending crosses in. So to grab a player like Paige Nielsen, who has that versatility to play as a defender, a lockdown 1v1 defender, she can get stuck into tackles, make those hard plays that break up opponents' momentum moving forward, and then also have the versatility to get the ball at her feet, dribble forward, take the space in front of her, combine down the field, and send crosses in. It's really a twofold pick for Angel City. And then when you look at the full roster for Angel City, they have Sarah Gordon, they have Julie Ertz, they have those players that can lead. Sarah Gordon, she's a player that you want in your center back, that can really organize and be loud vocally. So now putting Paige Nielsen alongside Sarah Gordon, those two can balance each other out, because they have experience playing in the league and playing with teams, Chicago and Washington, that have a lot of success. Hey, they were the two teams in the 2021 NWSL championship. So this is a huge get for Angel City. And I'm surprised it took them until the 7th pick to pick up a defender, honestly, just based on how everything was going with them, and already the forwards and the midfielders that they have.
I think I'm going to agree with you on that. I'm a little bit curious to see how it's going to play out, because I know, both Nielsen and Gordon are used to maybe sort of playing that right kind of center back role. So I'm curious to see like what the adjustment is going to be there, if any. But I mean, if they can figure it out, whoever wants to slot in left and right, I think that is going to be a really fierce center back duo. I mean, you've got Paige Nielsen, and Sarah Gordon. You got Sarah Gordon, who's going to be running him down, and you got Paige Nielsen, who's going to be wrecking him up. I mean, it is going to be like, watch out. So I like this pick as well, for Angel City at 7. And I'm just going to go back to back here, Lisa, if that's cool with you, because we had San Diego to close things out at number 8 and number 9. And San Diego hit us with the pass again. So obviously alluding to some things that we had heard throughout the duration of the trade window, potential moves with Orlando, potential moves with Portland Thorns, right? We were wondering if something was going to happen. And there were 2 passes that took place, which led to the 9th and final pick of the expansion draft, which also ended with San Diego Wave. And they went with Kaylee Real, a defender out of Racing Louisville FC. And I'm gonna pick the brain on this one again too, Lisa, because we talked a little bit about choosing defenders towards the end of this expansion draft, but in particular this defender out of Racing Louisville. I mean, because this was a center back for a Racing Louisville back line that had a rough go of it, right, in their inaugural season, conceded a lot of goals, but this was someone who was kind of a consistent presence for this back line throughout their entire season.
That's exactly right. Kaylee Real is a player that she wasn't super consistent for Louisville on the field, but she did get minutes, and especially with an expansion side in Racing Louisville. And now to be headed over to San Diego, another expansion side, I think that this experience will be different for Kaylee Real this year. I see her coming off the bench as that center back position, maybe taking this year to develop herself and to look at players ahead of her like Abby Dahlkamper that will be in that starting center back position, because the differences between Dahlkamper and Kaylee Real is, I would say, on ball. Defensively, they're both very good defenders locked down, but Abby Dahlkamper has the vision to break lines with one pass, finding forwards' feet that just eliminate the middle of the field completely and midfield opponents. Whereas Kaylee Real's vision needs to develop a little bit more, and playing every single day alongside a superstar defender like Abby Dahlkamper at San Diego will be huge for Kaylee Real's development. And also with a coach, Casey Stoney, who was a center back herself for years, and now as a coach, I think that says a lot about picking Kaylee Real from Casey Stoney, because as a former center back, Casey Stoney understands not just where a player is, where they have been, and how they've developed up until today, the middle of December, but Casey Stoney, head coach, can look at Kaylee Real and say, this is how you can progress. And this is how we can grow you to be a star defender, a center back for not only San Diego, but in the NWSL, and a player that a lot of clubs look at to say, you are going to be hard to break down. So the future for Kaylee Real is very bright at San Diego. And being drafted here at number 9, I don't think that's a knock at all on Kaylee Real. It's a little interesting that San Diego chose to pass the first 2 and then hold it till the very last draft and then pick up Kaylee Real. But hey, Jill Ellis, she's going to do what she wants to do. So I'm okay with it there, but no knock on Kaylee Real being the last draft. This is a huge star on Kaylee Real's roster, or on her resume.
We'll see how the rest of the rosters for both of these teams continues to develop, because that's it. That's a wrap for the expansion draft selection portion of the night, right? Angel City adding to their roster, San Diego adding to their roster, Angel City adding Weatherholt, Emsley, Spencer, Nielsen, right? Adding to players that they got during the trade window. Kaylin Sheridan, Kaylin Sheridan. We're talking Didi Heritage, Julie Ertz, Sarah Gordon, Carrie Riccaro, Mavignola, Katie Cousins, Simone Charlie, Tyler Lucy, Kristen Press, right? San Diego, going and getting out Sheridan, Dalkemper, Morgan, Johnson, Donia, Kelsey Turnbow, big future piece for them, right? Santa Clara Bronco, right? Angara James, Tegan McGrady, Jody Taylor. There's a ton there already for these 2 California sides entering the fold, and they still have the regular NWSL draft to participate in. It's an exciting time if you're a team from Cali, for sure. But there were still waves, no pun intended, to be made on this night. After the selections were made, the trade window opened immediately, and we're going to talk about that right now after a very quick break.
Welcome back to Attacking Third. To remind you all, MasterCard is a proud official partner of the National Women's Soccer League. Together with the NWSL, MasterCard is creating priceless opportunities for both the stars today, like MasterCard Global Brand Ambassador Crystal Dunn, and the stars of the future, some of who were drafted today. MasterCard is deeply committed to women's sports and promoting diversity on and off the field, with investments spanning players, teams, and competitions around the world. To learn more about how MasterCard is supporting gender equity and limitless possibilities for all, visit priceless.com.
Let's talk about some real priceless things right now. We're talking about trades. Trades, absolutely the life source for us in this offseason, Lisa. There's just been so much going on. I think compared to so many other seasons in the years past, when it comes to an offseason, there's always been a little bit of a chaotic energy when it comes to NWSL offseason. But something about this 2021 offseason, looking to the 2022 season in the horizon, it's just we're seeing teams, take a little bit more, risks and taking a roll of the dice and sort of seeing what they're going to get in return. And at the end of this expansion draft, the trade window opened immediately. And I mean immediately. That the expansion draft show on CBS Sports got to cover that as well. That's how quickly it happened. And this trade window is going to close on Friday, the 17th at 5 p.m. Ahead of the NWSL draft that's going to be taking place on Saturday. So a couple of trades that we're going to go through for everybody to sort of keep them in perspective of how things are going. The first one that got announced was between Angel City and Houston Dash. Angel City, again, they keep it moving, baby. Already looking to Saturday. They said, hey, let's make a move with Houston Dash. We're going to ask for the 6th pick in the upcoming 22 NWSL draft. And in exchange, we're going to give Houston $125 in allocation money and our 26th pick overall. I can't even say this word. It's not complimentary. It's just an extra pick that they're given as both San Diego and
compensatory. It's called a compensatory pick at the end of the 2nd round for the NWSL draft. Both expansion teams, San Diego and Angel City, each received a compensatory pick, meaning that there will be 12 picks
Angel City said, "I don't want it. I don't need it." They included this in part of the trade. So Houston's is getting a pick, right? Right after
Yeah.
it's still considered kind of in the early stage of the
Yeah.
draft, and also getting a crap ton of allocation money. San Diego and Portland Thorns make a trade of their own. They acquire the rights to Kristen Westphal and Amir Ali, and Portland is going to receive $50,000 in allocation money. Gotham FC and San Diego Wave also engaging in a trade. This might be the biggest one, right? Or second to biggest one, depending on your perspective. Gotham FC acquiring the rights to midfielder Christy Mewis in exchange for $200,000 in allocation money.
Ooh.
And Orlando Pride and San Diego Wave finally making it official and announcing it to the world that San Diego has acquired the rights to Alex Morgan from Orlando Pride in exchange for the rights to Angar James and $275,000 in allocation money. So we got to talk about it. Lisa, maybe let's talk about grades a little bit, right? If we can even try to put a grade on things. I think if you're looking at these two teams and how they handled their expansion draft night, you give them grades, but maybe they're winners in two different
Mhm.
areas. I think if you're Angel City, I think you're grading them based on the players, right? That they acquired through the draft and even maybe through the trades. But then you've got San Diego getting back huge, a chunk of money and moving the money around, really making the allocation money work for them. When we're looking at these trades, Lisa, what are some of the bigger ones that are pointing out to you and why?
I mean, Gotham acquiring Christy Mewis in exchange for $200,000 in allocation money. First, Christy Mewis going to San Diego was a bit of a shock initially in the trade and in the draft, just because Christy Mewis has been rumored to be going to Europe. She's been at Houston. She's a mainstay there. It just was a little surprising to see San Diego pick her up. So then as soon as this trade was announced that Mewis would be heading to Gotham, it clicked and it all made sense. I mean, hindsight, right? It's always 2020. So seeing this move was huge. And now I'm very intimidated by Gotham's midfield unit that they have. They have McCall Zerboni. They have Ali Long. They have Christy Mewis. They have Jennifer Cujo. This team for Gotham, they are looking to make a statement next year. So that was one of the biggest trades that I saw come out of post expansion draft coverage that was happening. Not surprising at all that the Orlando and San Diego trade with Alex Morgan, because we knew that had happened. San Diego had announced that earlier in the week, and Orlando Pride had said, we're going to wait until the trade window reopens and we're going to follow the rules and we're going to walk the straight and narrow line and we'll announce this when the time is right and correct. But the thing that stood out to me about this trade is $275,000 in allocation money is going to Orlando. That is the highest trade amount in NWSL history. $275,000. That is a big chunk of change. And also with Haz James going from San Diego to Orlando, who was traded earlier in this offseason from North Carolina to San Diego. So lots of movement going on. I would love to take a look at San Diego's offices and see what their cork boards look like on their walls, because these trades and this chess game that Jill Ellis is playing with the NWSL is very impressive and fantastic to watch.
Listen, I've heard that you can't put a price on home. And San Diego said, yes, I can. Here is $275,000 in allocation money to Orlando Pride. I mean, let's talk about those grades. I mean, when we're looking at just the trades, right? Let's break it down into two parts. If we're giving grades on expansion draft night. When you're grading San Diego Wave FC, Lisa, what kind of grade are you giving them and why? And what are you basing it on? Are you basing it on their selections or are you basing it on their trades?
Well, you have to look at the whole picture, the whole test that they were faced with tonight with the expansion draft, and then knowing that the trade window is going to open immediately as soon as the expansion draft ended. So because of that, as I was going along with my red Sharpie, as we do as teachers giving these grades, the draft was fine for them. They did okay. Getting Kristen McNabb was pretty good for them. Christy Mewis was an interesting pick. Passing on two different drafts was interesting. That honestly dropped their grade a little bit, right? You start at an A plus and then you just drop from there. So because of that, San Diego went into the end of the expansion draft with maybe like a B minus, I'm going to say. And then looking at how they took those draft picks that they had, especially Christy Mewis, trading her away to Gotham in exchange for $200,000 in allocation money, their grade rose a little bit. I'm thinking like a B plus, A minus for San Diego based on the entire night and what they were able to do. For you, when you look at San Diego, where do they fall on your grade scale?
I'm staying in the B column as well. I don't know if I'm gonna give him a minus. I think I'm gonna give him just a solid B. I'm gonna give San Diego Wave Football Club a B because I really do think that it's tricky when you're coming in as an expansion side, right? And to come into play and make both the trade window, the expansion draft selection process, and allocation money work for you all at once. And I think they did that to a certain extent. And while we are seeing, one of their top pick, right, their first pick of the night, be utilized as a trade asset, that doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't walk away with a couple players that aren't going to have an impact on their team. I think that getting Kristen McNabb, I think that getting Kaylee Real were two good picks for them to help continue to flesh out their roster. But really sort of making allocation money work for them, because during the initial trade window, there were some question marks where it's like, wow, they're just giving away this allocation money for to solidify their goalkeeping position, right? And then what are they going to do to try to maybe get some of it back, or how are they going to utilize? And we're seeing that sort of come in to play. It's like sometimes you got to move it around and make your money work for that. And I'm not going to act like it's not a historic move that they made for Alex Morgan, because it is. I mean, this is going to be the third inaugural team that Alex Morgan goes to in NWSL and helps sort of build from the ground up. We saw her get a start in 2013 with Portland Thorns. There was a big move that was made when Orlando Pride came in as an expansion side. She was with that club for 6 years, and now she's going back home to Cali, and she's going to do it again for a third time with San Diego Wave FC. So I'm excited to see that. There's definitely a story arc there, right, for Alex Morgan in her time. Yes. And NWSL, and we're going to get to continue to see that. So I would give them a solid B. I think maybe I would give Angel City FC the B plus, because I think when you're correct, you're talking about looking at things as a whole. I think they're walking away from this expansion draft night with all of it. They're walking away with players to help, sort of flesh out that roster, and they're walking away with good moves and good trades and good deals and picks looking ahead, right, to the regular NWSL draft that's going to take place on Saturday. So I'm going with a B plus for them. How about you?
I agree with that. I see that. So we'll stick. I want to be on the same page with you here. So we're B for San Diego. I like that for San Diego. And Angel City, they get that B plus based on the trades that they made. I like this. So overall, Angel City coming out the winner of tonight in the expansion draft, and then along with the trades even coming after it, because Angel City making those trades with Houston to get some money and trade around those picks. Angel City's still in the conversation. Now, Sandra, you touched on this, but I want to ask, because this has been a big topic of conversation amongst NWSL fans, allocation money, because it has been moving from team to team, loads of it happening. I mean, $125,000 to Houston tonight from Angel City, $50,000 in allocation to Portland Thorns, Gotham and San Diego doing 200,000 allocation, and then 275 to Orlando from San Diego for that Alex Morgan trade. Really, this is a lot of money moving all around. What is the point of it all? Who does this benefit? If you have all this money and you're giving it away, are the teams receiving it benefiting? Can you explain the allocation money trades a little bit?
Well, I mean, I think you got to start at the beginning. So allocation money got introduced in NWSL, back in the 2019 offseason to utilize ahead of the 2020 season, which obviously got derailed by COVID. But the concept that finally got introduced, it was one of those things where it was like, oh, is this going to be something that we will ever see, right? In NWSL history. And it was maybe a certain point of question because at the time there was an allocation system in place from US soccer to sort of right pay the salaries of US soccer players, but that is now no longer in existence moving into the 2022 season and beyond. Now, even when allocation money got introduced, those two things weren't connected. Allocation money for NWSL was just its own thing, and that I think at the time it was initially said that it was somewhere around the 300,000 mark to $400,000 mark that clubs could essentially borrow from the league to utilize what everybody really hoped for was to pay their players, right? Or to acquire talent. The truth of the matter is that allocation money could be utilized for any particular reason for club purposes, right? But I think that most clubs are trying to do their fair due diligence and utilize allocation money for player salaries, if that's the case. And we're starting to see that really become more of a consistent factor in trades moving forward. I think we're coming off of a 2020 where it sort of got first utilized, but kind of didn't really have a lot of avenues to go.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're starting to see in this 2021 offseason, heading into 2022, that this is going to be a real factor continuing moving forward. And I think a huge part of it does have to do with the fact that you've got two California sides and that are willing to pay and utilize this money as they see fit. You've got a team like Kansas City Current with their ownership group. They also made a ton of waves. Again, no water puns intended here. It's just coming out of me that way. But they also, made a little bit of noise with their ownership group coming in, to participate in that 2021 draft, where they made the highest, history making move for $175,000 allocation money just for a number 4 draft pick. So you have clubs with new ownership groups that are coming in and really changing the landscape of NWSL and how deals are made and how that allocation money is utilized. And I think we saw the continuation of that tonight. And I think we're going to see the continuation of that as well on Saturday. I mean, there's still a whole other draft to cover, Lisa.
There is so much more to cover, but this was it. This was our expansion draft coverage, and I'm so thankful to be doing it here with you, Sandra. And thanks to everyone that joined us live on YouTube. We see your comments, we see your chats. Keep conversing with each other, asking us questions. Because we want to answer them for you all. But as Sandra said, this was just the first of 2 drafts in a few days. And we get to do it all again on Saturday, Sandra.
I'm looking forward to joining everybody once more. One draft down, one more to go. The 2022 NWSL Draft, formerly known as the College Draft, will be taking place on Saturday, December 18th, 2 p.m. Eastern. You could check that out live on CBS Sports HQ, CBS Sports Network, and Paramount Plus. This draft will also be virtual, so we will have a live recap on Saturday evening on youtube.com/attacking third. So join us for that one as well. Everyone, I want to thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for listening to us as always. You can follow us on Twitter at Attacking Third. We're on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere you listen to your podcast shows. If you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts specifically with a question, Lisa and I will answer it during our mailbag segment. And we're also available as video. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Visit youtube.com/attacking third. And Lisa and I will be back Saturday with a live NWSL Draft recap on YouTube. For Sandra Herrera and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking Third.